So from today onwards, we are going to start with the pteridophyta characters, that is the pteridophyta type studies and all the syllabus what is there for your competitive exam. So I'm just sharing my screen. I hope you all can see the screen, the slides.
Yeah, screen is visible, madam. Please you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we'll begin with this the first slide. We are looking into the general characters of all the pteridophytic plants. So as we discussed in the previous classes, that is in the bryophytes, they are commonly called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. But whereas the pteridophytes, these are regarded as the fern plants. We call them as ferns. Why? Because they have, the plants are having feathers like leaves. So leaves are the main important peculiar characters of the plant body. So we call them as the feather-like leaves or the fern plants. And another important point regarding the pteridophytes are they are considered as the vascular cryptogams. So till bryophytes, we does not come across any vascular tissue system. But whereas in the pteridophytes, these are the first plants which are going to possess the vascular tissue systems, the so-called xylem and the phloem, for conducting of the food material as well as the water. So we call them as the vascular cryptogams. So pteridophytes can also be commonly called as fern plants. They are called as the vascular cryptogams, and they have a peculiar feature of having feather-like leaves. Next. So these includes a very primitive vascular plants. Pteridophytes are considered as the primitive vascular plants. They are not having the vascular system, well-developed vascular system, just like in angiospermic plants. No, they have a very primitive type of vascular tissue system. Next comes to the plant body. The plant body here morphologically, it is a sporophytic plant. And the plant is differentiated into stem, the lower roots as well as the leaves. So here in bryophyte, we discussed about the plant body is a gametophyte. Why we called it as a gametophyte? Because it produces gametes, or it consists of the thalloid plant body, consists of the sexual organs. But here in the pteridophyte, the plant body, the adult plant body is a sporophytic plant, because sporophytic, because what is sporophytic here? The plant body which is going to develop or produce spores. So here the adult plant is acting like a sporophyte, producing spore producing organs that we call it as strobili or strobulus, or the sporangia, we can also say that, which are going to develop on the adult plant body. So hence the plant body is considered as the sporophytic plant body. And another important point here is the sporophyte is independent here. It is just unlike like bryophyte. In bryophytes, we have looked into that sporophyte was dependent on the primitive bryophytes when we talk about. They are depending on the gametophytic tissue. But here in pteridophytes, we have seen that the evolution, the advanced bryophytes which were partially dependent on the gametophyte, they are now, when we come to the evolution of pteridophytes, the sporophyte is becoming completely independent. It is not dependent on any gametophytic tissue. Now, when we go for the next slide over here, so we have seen the presence of the plants, pteridophytic plants. Most of them are terrestrial. That is, they have been completely moved out from the aquatic nature and have been attaining the land habitat. So we call them as a completely terrestrial plants. And among these terrestrial plants, when we talk about the size and the habitat of the plant, some plants are considered of pteridophytic plants are annuals. The examples we can say that they are Azolla and Salvinia. They are the annual plants. But whereas some of the plants like Angiopteris or Lycopodium and all, they are the perennial trees. Now, so say there are certain plants which are also aquatic among the pteridophytes like Azolla, Marsilia, Isoetes, and Salvinia. These are some of the aquatic forms, and few are xerophytes also like Selaginella. But majority of the pteridophytic plants are the terrestrial, they acquire the terrestrial habitat. Now, so when we talk regarding the structure of the plant body, that is the sporophytic plant body, majority of the plants have herbaceous stem. The stem is not having or it does not acquired any woody nature. It is somewhat soft or it is herbaceous. Okay, and the mostly the roots and the stem, the tips are going to have the growing apex or the meristematic tissues for growing by the apical nature. Now, when we go for the leaf structure, the leaves plays a very important and peculiar and most important role here in the pteridophytic plants, because these leaves are the one which are most prominently observed in the plants well developed, and these are the leaves which are going to show the or they are going to consist of the spore producing organs, which we call it as sporangia. Okay, so that's why some of the leaves, they all the leaves which are going to bear the sporangia, these are the leaves which are called as sporophylls. All the sporophyll, that is the leaves which are going to possess sporangia, we call them as the sporophylls. And all these sporophylls, they will get aggregated together and forming the cone-like structures, which we call them as strobili or the strobulus. So that is a very important characteristic feature of the pteridophyte, developing the strobili. That is, the sporangia are being developed on the leaves, what we call them as the sporophylls. So the leaves, they may be scaly in the genera of Equisetum, or we can also see the presence of small sessile leaves in case of Lycopodium, and they may be very large and petiolate compound leaves in case of ferns. So we can come across all these different types of leaves in all the uh, pteridophytic plants. Next, another important point we are going to see or observe in the pteridophytes are regarding the leaf character. The younger leaves in the pteridophytes, they show a characteristic feature of circinate vernation. That means you can observe here, that is when the leaves are very young, they have not yet matured. So those leaves, they will be coiled inward like this. They will be coiled inward. Okay, so this phenomenon of coiling of the leaves, of the younger leaves towards inner side, this is called as circinate venation. So majority of all the pteridophytes, they possess this circinate venation. Next, next we'll coming for the sporophytic, the mature sporophyte of the pteridophytic plant. So we have already told you that these are the plants showing the peculiar characteristic feature of developing the strobili. And here, depending upon the size of the leaves also, the pteridophytic plants are classified as microphyllous pteridophytes and macrophyllous pteridophytes. That means the pteridophytic plants which are going to possess simple leaves, very small, with a single vein, and they are arranged side by side without any gap between them. These are considered, those plants are considered to be of microphyllous leaves. So phyllis is always represented in the leaf character. So here the leaves are very simple and they are very much small enough and arranged very closely with each other. So this is called as microphyllous leaves. So that type of plant or that type of vegetable is called as the macrophyllous leaves. So here you can see the characteristic feature of Lycopodium here. So you can see there is no gap in between the leaves. The leaves are very small. They are simple, single leaflet, arranged very close with one another. Okay, those are microphyllous leaves. Next, we'll go for the macrophyllous. Now, what are these macrophyllous? The name macro means something bigger, larger in size. So the leaves which are very large enough and they are complex and the leaves will be pinnately compound and we have a complex series of veins. So we can see it on the leaf with a prominent leaf gap in the stem. So that we call it as the macrophyllous leaves. So example, we can take it as a terrace. That is the mostly advanced forms of the pteridophytes possess these macrophyllous leaves. But generally majority of the pteridophytes are microphyllous type. Next, we'll go for the still more characters of these pteridophytes. We can see the stem, which is usually branched, having a central stem and branches coming out of it. And the branching, it can be a monopodial or dichotomous branching. And these branches, they do not arise from the axils of the leaves. So generally branches, they arise from the axils of the leaves, but here they do not arise. And the leaves on the stem, they possess hair-like structures, what we call it as trichomes. Next, the root and stem, they are going to have a well-developed vascular system. The vascular system consisted of here, the xylem and the phloem. And when we observe the anatomy of the stem or the anatomy of the root of a pteridophyte, it is primitive vascular plants. So that does not develop the secondary tissues. Okay, so cambium is generally absent in the vascular tissues. That is in the vascular bundles. We cannot see the formation of any secondary tissue, what we call it as cambium. It is only a primitive vascular plant. Now, but there are example like isoitis in which we can see some little amount of secondary growth, that is a cambium formation, but generally it is absent. Now, next when we go for the arrangement of these vascular bundles, they may be, depending upon the vascular bundles arrangement, the stela region, it can be a protostele or it can be a siphonostele or dictyostele or plectostele or the polystele. So what are all these? When we talk about the type studies, we look into that. So the steles, that is the arrangement of the vascular bundles, how they are arranged. That is xylem and the phloem. Are they present on the same vascular bundle or they are separate or they are present on the two different radii? So based on that, the steles are differentiated in this manner. Next. So when we go for the these vascular tissues, what we call it as xylem and phloem, the xylem tissue is made up of tracheids, whereas the phloem is made up of sieve cells and the phloem parenchyma. Whereas the xylem vessels are absent and the xylem is considered as a water and mineral. So this is a very important point in the competitive exam. The the cells which are absent, the xylem cells what are absent in the pteridophytes are the xylem vessels or the trachea. They are absent in the pteridophytes. We can see only the presence of tracheids. So that's a very important point. Whereas the phloem, we can see only the presence of sieve cells, but not the sieve tubes. Only sieve cells and the phloem parenchyma forms the phloem tissue. So phloem conduct, as we all know, it conduct the food material and the xylem conduct the water and the mineral salts. Next. Now, next is the photosynthetic tissue, that is the greenery nature of the plant is restricted only to the leaves because the leaves are going to consist of the chloroplast or the chlorophyll pigments in them. So they will be appearing green in color and that photosynthesis is restricted only to that particular leaves. Next. So that is comes about the general morphology of the sporophytic plant body. Next, at the time of reproduction. So when we talk about the reproduction point of view, so as the sporophyte, the plant body, the pteridophytic plant body is a sporophyte, it reproduces with the help of the spores. So all the pteridophytic plants are sporophytes. They are going to produce spores. Now these spores are developed in the specialized sac-like structures, what we call them as sporangia. So sporangia are the spore-bearing structures or organs which are going to develop the spores on maturity. Now these sporangia, they are always developed on the ventral side of the leaf. Okay, so these sporangia are developed on the leaf, that is on the ventral side of the leaf. So the leaves are considered as here the sporophyll. Phyllis means leaf. What is this phyllis bearing? The leaves are bearing here the sporangia, the spore producing organs. So we call them as the sporophylls. So here in all the pteridophytes, we come across sporophylls and the normal leaves. Sporophylls are the leaves which are going to produce sporangia. Now, in Ophioglossum, example, a fertile spike-bearing sporangia. It will arise from the axil of the leaf. Just like a spike in fluorescence, in that manner, the sporangia are going to be developed. That is having the central like central axis. On either side of the central axis, you can see the development of the sporangia, just like a spike. So, example we can see here in the Ophioglossum. Now, in the aquatic forms we talked about, like Salvinia or Marsilia, the sporangia are present within a specialized cup-like structures. We call them as the sporocarp. So, in order to protect the sporangia from the water currents or from the tides, they are being developed in the cup-like or the reproductive fruiting body-like structures. We call them as the sporocarps. The example is Salvinia and the Marsilia. Next. So depending upon, so we told you that the pteridophytic plant body, sporophyte, is developing or producing spores. Now, so the plants, based on what type of spores they are producing, the plants can be classified as homosporous plant body and heterosporous plant body. Now, what do you mean by homosporous? So we all know that homo means similar. So within the sporangia, if the spores, all whatever are produced are alike, if they are similar, okay, if all the, suppose I'm talking about the size of the spore, if all the spores are smaller in size, or if all the spores are larger in size, that is the uniformity in the spores, then such a type of plants are considered as the homosporous sporophyte. That is, they are producing only a similar type of spores. But when we talk the example of the plant, pteridophytic plant, which is a homosporous sporophyte, is Lycopodium on the terrace. Whereas in Selaginella, the type study, it is going to develop, or the sporophyte is of heterosporous type. That means the sporangia are going to develop or produce the two different type of spores. Some spores may be smaller in size, we call them as microspores, or some spores are bigger in size, we call them as the macrospores. And not only this, these spores, they may be developed in two different types of sporangia also. The microspores, they are developed in the microsporangia, and the macrospores are produced in the macrosporangia. So depending upon the type of the spores they have developed, the sporophyte plant body is considered as a heterosporous plant body. So example we can take here it as Selaginella. So just now I tell you what are the homosporous. That is the spore, the sporangia, which is going to develop only a similar type of spores. They may the spores may be small or they may be big. That is a homosporous type. Heterosporous, two different type of spores. They are developed within the same sporangia, or they may be produced in two different sporangia. So the smaller spores, they are called as the microspores, or they are developed in the sporangia, which is called as microsporangia. And the larger spores are considered, these are the larger spores which are considered as the megaspore, and they are developed in the megasporangium. And always the microsporangia, when we talk regarding the reproduction point of view, microsporangia or the microspores will always develop into a male gametophyte or a male plant body. Whereas a megaspore, the female spore will develop into a female gametophyte or a female plant body. Next. Now, depending upon here, when we talk about the sporangia, based on the development, that is how the sporangia is developed on the leaf, the two types of sporangial development we can observe in the pteridophyte. That is, one is called as eusporangiate gametophyte, eusporangiate development, and another one is called as leptosporangiate development. Now, what do you mean by this eusporangiate and leptosporangiate? Suppose if one of the initial, that is from one of these sporophytic tissue or one of the cell from the leaf is getting modified into a sporangia like structure or a sporangial initial, then that development is considered as leptosporangiate development. So you can see here. So this is the sporophyte which is developed, or the sporangia which is developed from only a single cell or single initial. Then such type of development is called as leptosporangiate development. Suppose if the sporangia is developed from a many cells, then we call them as the eusporangiate development. So these two characters are also very, very important for your exam point of view. Right. So next we are talking about the sporophyll structure here. The sporophylls, they may be either aggregated into forming a compact cone-like structure. What I told you, it is the strobili, which is developed at the apical part of the stem. Example, Lycopodium, Equisitum, or Selaginella. Okay, these are the plants in which all the sporangia, they are aggregated, which are developed on the leaf, what we call it as sporophyll. Now, all these sporophylls will be just arranged in the form of a cone-like structure. Okay, so that we call it as the strobili. So this strobili appears at the apical point or the tip of the main stem. Whereas these strobili are uniformly distributed, then we call it as the terrace, or the example is terrace or the ediantum. Now, next, in the true ferns, these sporangia are generally located on the lower surface of the leaf in the clusters, what we call it as the sori or the sorus. So you can see here on the ventral side of the leaf. So this is on the ventral side of the leaf. These sporangia, they're arranged in the cluster or in a group like this. Then this we call it as the sori or the sorus. Next. So when you talk about the spore structure, so the spores, they are generally haploid structures which are formed from the sporangia or from within the sporangia, the spore mother cells, they will undergo reduction division and develops into the spore. And spore is a spherical, or it is in the form of a tetrad shape with having a very thick wall of outer exine and inner intine. Now these spores, they are considered as the starting stage of the gametophytic generation. Now in case of homosporous species, that is when all the spores are alike, they develop into the gametophyte. Then such type of development, we call it as exosporic development. Whereas in heterosporous condition, the larger spores will develop into the female gametophyte, and the smaller spores, the microspores, develops into the female gametophyte. That is a female plant. And one important point here is gametophyte plant body and the sporophyte plant body, they both are independent with each other in the pteridophyte. They are not dependent. They're completely independent, both morphologically as well as the physiologically. There is no relation between a gametophyte and the sporophyte in the pteridophytic plants. Right. So when we talk about the gametophyte, the first formed gametophytic tissue which has been developed by the germination of the spore, we call it as the prothallus. So this is the starting stage of the gametophytic tissue of the pteridophytic plant. And prothallus here, it is a independent, that is, it can prepare its own food material. It is green in color. Okay, it is heart-shaped structure and it is very simple. And on this thallus, we can see the development of the antheridia as well as the archegonia. Okay, so depending upon, suppose if the thallus, the prothallus, which is developed from the homosporous type, then that prothallus going to bear, then, or we can call it as a monoecious prothallus, because it is developed from a homosporous type of spore. Okay, so prothallus will develop antheridia and the archegonia, the two sexual organs within the same prothallus, they will be developing. When we talk about the heterosporous type of development, the microspore will develop into a male prothallus. That means the male prothallus will develop the male sexual organ or the male reproductive organ antheridia, whereas the female sexual organ will, that is the female prothallus will develop the female sexual organ, the so-called archegonia. So based on the germination of the spore, the prothallus, whatever may be developed, the gametophytic tissue, it can be a monoecious or it can be a dioecious. So here just now I told you, heterosporous types are always dioecious. That is, microspore gives rise to male prothallus and the macrospore gives rise to female prothallus. And the sexual organs in the pteridophytes, they are embedded or it can be projected in the prothallus. And the male sexual organ, here we call it as antheridia, and female sexual organ is called as the archegonia. So we all know that just like the bryophytes, the antheridia is a club shaped having a small stalk, and they may be stalked or they may be sessile also. So these antheridia, they develop into male gametes, the so-called antherozoids. So these antherozoids, they possess spirally coiled flagella by which they will be swimming and reaching the female gamete. Archegonia, which is a flask-shaped structure having differentiated into neck and the venter. So neck is projected and the venter will be embedded in the prothallus, whereas the venter is the most important part of the archegonia, which is going to consist of the female gamete, the so-called egg. And the neck is elongated. So at the time of fertilization, the neck canal cells will degenerate and going to produce a mucilaginous substance. And here the mucilage, whatever is oozing out, will attract the antherozoids, the male gametes, towards the archegonium and results in the fertilization. Now, after the fusion of the male and the female gamete, then it results in a diploid zygote. Next, the zygote is the first cell of the sporophytic generation, the next generation. Now, the zygote divides repeatedly and forms the embryo. Now, the first division of the zygote, it will determine the polarity of the embryo. That is, the basal part of the embryo will develop the foot as well as the root, whereas the apical pole, that is the opposite side of the embryo, the cells will develop the shoot apex region. Now, with this, we can say that clearly there is an alternation of generation observed in the pteridophyte group of plants also. Gametophytic plant body is completely different from the sporophytic plant body. That is gametophyte generation and the sporophyte generation are totally, we can see them and they are totally different from one another. So hence we call that as heteromorphic alternation of generation. And always sporophyte is the dominant phase of the pteridophytic plant. That is, the adult plant in pteridophyte is sporophyte, whereas in bryophyte the dominant phase is gametophytic tissue. So the life cycle, it always be a diplohaplontic life cycle, because the sporophyte is always, the adult sporophyte is always a diploid, in a diploid condition, and from which the spores are released, which are haploid. They develop into a haploid gametophytic tissue. So the life cycle is considered to be as the diplohaplontic life cycle. That is, the diploid phase alternate with the haploid phase of the life cycle. So you can see here, sporophyte is diploid. It is going to develop the haploid spores. So these spores, the spore is the starting stage of the gametophyte. Okay, diploid phase, it is alternating with the haploid phase of the gametophyte. Then later on, after fertilization, zygote, it is a diploid. Zygote is the starting stage of the sporophyte. Zygote, diploid zygote undergo divisions and forms the embryo. Embryo will develop into an adult sporophyte. So diploid haplontic life cycle. So this is the life cycle of the pteridophytes. So with this, we have completed with the general characters of the pteridophytic group of plants. Any questions to be asked or any doubts to be raised? Participants? So tomorrow onwards, we are going to start with the type studies. We'll start with the Lycopodium life cycle. Yeah. Anybody wants to yeah.
Ma'am, is till now every class is uploaded to YouTube?
Yeah. Everything is uploaded. You can please subscribe to the YouTube channel and you can get all the classes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Still any more regarding today's class? Any point to be repeated or anything to be yet to be explained? You can put the question in the chat box also. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. If there are no questions, thank you. We can end the session today for today. We'll go for tomorrow's class. Thank you, everybody, for your patience listening. Thank you, sir.